New Year's Eve. Some brighter skies, although it will be blustery. Now across central and southern parts of Scotland, as well as northern England, the rain here tends to die out in situ, so some drier skies, still a lot of cloud. Brighter skies across the far northeast of Scotland, and temperatures typically coming in around 9 to 14, 15 degrees Celsius, certainly mild across England and Wales, southern Scotland and Northern Ireland. Now, through New Year's Eve evening, many areas seeing drier weather, although it will be rather cloudy. The winds then pick up some strength across Irish seacoast as more rain comes in across the northwest of the country, and then more rain arrives across more southern parts as we head into New Year's Day. So New Year's Day will dawn bright for some, mild for most, and also windy. Through the day, this showery rain extends from western Scotland towards Wales, northwest England, as well as central southern England. So through the day, yes, you may see some showery bursts. Either side, though, some brighter conditions, but always that fresh wind, which will be strong towards the northwest. And temperatures again will be on the milder side. However, turning colder from the north and very windy on Sunday in the south.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Darren McCaffrey. This is GB News Live. It is 8 o'clock. Northern Ireland and Wales have joined England in cutting the COVID quarantine period from 10 days to 7. Is there now pressure on Scotland to do the same? And it's a testing time for everyone as lateral flow shortage of tests continues. What are the latest on that? And have we reached the point where COVID has more in common with the common cold? That and Colin Fraser looking back at a year in space. We've got a jam-packed hour ahead, but first, here's the news with Polly.
Darren, thank you. Good evening. A woman who claims she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein and abused by the Duke of York says others must be held accountable following Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction for sex abuse. Virginia Giuffre is bringing a civil case against Prince Andrew for alleged sexual assault. He strenuously denies any wrongdoing. 60-year-old Ghislaine Maxwell now faces life in jail after she was found guilty of 5 out of 6 charges for helping Epstein sexually abuse girls.
It sends a message also to other sexual predators and to those who would assist them in sex trafficking that you may face similar charges one day in a court of law in the United States. You may be convicted and you may face the rest of your life in prison, as may be the case now with Ms. Maxwell.
The Welsh Government is loaning 4 million lateral flow tests to England as the number of COVID cases continues to rise. The latest figures show 11,452 people are in hospital with the virus. That's up 61% from a week earlier. It's the highest number since February the 26th. There's been a rise in demand for tests as people try to comply with advice to limit the spread of the Omicron variant. Meanwhile, the NHS is due to set up Nightingale Hospital surge hubs in England to prepare for increasing cases of the Omicron variant. Work on 8 hubs holding up to 100 patients each will start this week. The NHS is also ramping up the use of virtual wards at home, where patients get monitoring technology and regular check-ins with clinicians. Southern Rail has confirmed none of its trains will run into or from London Victoria until January the 10th because of COVID-related staff shortages. It's set to severely disrupt passenger services at one of the UK's busiest stations. Southern connects locations such as Brighton, Eastbourne and Portsmouth, and Cross Country is also urging customers to avoid travelling on New Year's Eve because of a planned strike. France has suspended its ban on British citizens driving through the country to reach other EU states. The authorities have confirmed that people who live in the EU and travel to the UK for Christmas will be able to transit through France over the new year to return home. British citizens are still largely banned from going to France unless there's a compelling reason to do so. Meanwhile, Germany is lifting travel restrictions for fully vaccinated people from the UK from 11 p.m. on Monday. That's your news update. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
Well, as we've been hearing in the news, Northern Ireland's executive has resisted reintroducing further COVID restrictions. Meanwhile, both Northern Ireland and Wales will join England in cutting the amount of time that people will have to spend in isolation from 10 days to 7, as long as you've had 2 negative tests on day 6 and 7. Of course, the isolation period in Scotland remains at 10 days. Now, the news of no further restrictions in Northern Ireland will be a relief to the hospitality sector. Andrew Linus is the managing director of Linus Food, and he told GBNews that the one thing his business needs at the moment is certainty.
I cover Scotland, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. The difficulty I have is that is 3 different jurisdictions with 3 different COVID regulations right now, and I seem to spend my life on either Twitter or on news sites finding out what's going to happen next. So that is a real frustration of business. We've been here time and again, last March, last kind of winter, then again in January, then again in the summer. Regulations have chopped and changed, and that is very difficult for the hospitality industry. I think when I look at our 3 jurisdictions, ironically, probably Scotland has been the most helpful in terms of Nicola Sturgeon comes out and very clearly says, look, here's the plan. I may not like it, but I have more knowledge as to what's going to happen. And again, I think in Southern Ireland, we probably at least get some notice of what's going to happen down there. Unfortunately, the worst jurisdiction has been the Northern Ireland Executive. It's the not knowing is the hardest part for us as businesses. They don't understand that hospitality has a supply chain behind that, be it food, drink, whatever, fresh veg, fresh food. And we have to try and plan. And without any kind of level of guidance or thought process, that is very, very difficult. Throughout this pandemic, we haven't even had rates relief in our business as a food wholesaler. From all of those lockdowns, the amount of lost stock is in the tens of thousands of pounds for us as a business. And the view has been, well, that's a too difficult box to tick, so we just have to deal with that.
Meanwhile, the latest figures from the Zoe COVID study suggest that 3/4 of people who are suffering from common cold symptoms over the last couple of weeks have actually had COVID. Dr. Claire Stevens, a scientist on the study, has urged the government to add symptoms such as a sore throat, headache and runny nose to its official list of COVID symptoms as soon as possible. Previous symptoms such as a fever, new contagious cough and a loss of a sense of taste or smell are now much less common. Virologist and the former head of viral vaccines at the University of Cambridge, Professor Stafia Staffnew, suggested to me earlier that explained why Omicron might have milder symptoms.
Omicron variant actually replicates more efficiently in the upper airways, whereas Delta goes deep into the lungs. So Omicron, if you like, that's good news because it's not causing such severe deep infections of the lung, which is associated with more severe disease. It's replicating and producing a lot of virus closer to the upper respiratory tract, which probably may explain why it's transmitted so efficiently, which is producing a lot of virus in the upper airways. And I think this change is associated with the many mutations that Omicron has over Delta, all these mutations in the spike protein. And it's kind of changed the way the virus infects cells, which cells types it infects efficiently, being more restricted in the upper airways, facilitating release of virus. And that might explain why it's causing less in the way of severe disease.
Well, as always, do get in touch with us here at GB News. You know the email address, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet us at GB News. In touch, the bottom of the screen there. And we'll read out some of your thoughts a little later on in the programme. Now, 92 convicted terrorists are being considered for release from prison by the parole board. These inmates were often participants in plots that failed only through the intervention of the security services. Terror offenders must now serve at least 2/3 of the sentence before being eligible for release. Well, Sir Mark Lyle Grant, he's a former UK ambassador to the UN and a former national security advisor, and he explained why so many convicted terrorists are being considered for parole.
Well, I think this is a sign, actually, that the new system is working, because before the legislation that you mentioned that was introduced in February 2020, some of these terrorists would have already been released automatically after serving only half of their sentence. But over the last 2 years, they now have to serve at least 2/3 of their sentence and then could be eligible to have a hearing before the parole board. So I don't think it's surprising that there are a number in the pipeline. Over the last 4 years, there have been about between 200 and 250 convicted terrorists in British jails at any one time. And that number has remained largely constant over that period. The large majority of those are Islamist terrorists, although there is a rising number of right-wing extremists in prison as well. And over the last 2 years, since this new legislation has passed, about 110 to 115 of those have been presented before the parole board. But of those, only 11, so less than 10%, have actually been released. The rest have either been sent back to prison or are waiting for their hearings to be heard.
Victims have been expressing their relief at the conviction of Ghislaine Maxwell on charges of recruiting and trafficking young girls to be sexually abused by the late American financier Jeffrey Epstein. The 60-year-old was found guilty on 5 of the 6 counts she faced, including the most serious charge, that of sex trafficking a minor. Well, earlier on GB News, Colin Brazier was joined by political commentator Benedict Spence, who explained why the British media has been so drawn to the story.
All facets of the story. It's got something for everybody, links to sort of American high society, British high society, the royal family. There are, links to, Jeffrey Epstein was friends with everybody. Ghislaine Maxwell knew everybody. And it is fascinating, isn't it, that as much as we're talking about Ghislaine, this sort of very accomplished woman, this very personable woman, actually throughout the trial, it's the spectre of Jeffrey Epstein himself has sort of hung over it. There's been this sort of feeling that, as much as she is on trial, this is as much his trial as anything else, because, of course, justice has been denied to the victims. I wouldn't say to Jeffrey Epstein himself. I don't think death is escaping justice, but certainly in terms of what his victims would have wanted, that was a very unsatisfactory outcome. So that, I think, has intensified all the interest into this trial. I thought it was very interesting. The Times have run a good piece on this, where they pointed out that Ghislaine Maxwell's father, when he was still Jan Huk rather than Robert Maxwell, when he was still in Czechoslovakia during the Second World War, he was tried by the Nazis for espionage, but he escaped on his way to court. But no such sort of escape for Ghislaine Maxwell, as harsh a sentence as you could possibly imagine. Whether or not she serves all 65 years or whether or not they are sort of combined and run concurrently is yet to be seen. But nonetheless, it's something, again, to use a cliche, it has gripped people's attention, because these sort of stories, they don't come along that often. And it is always people like that sort of pull the most focus.
Benedict Spence speaking a little earlier on GB News. Now, 1 in 4 adults say they plan to retire earlier than the state pension age. A study by Aviva shows that 25% of people aspire to retire at 60, and the majority say it's because they can enjoy more freedom while still being fit and well enough to enjoy it. Over 26% said the decision was based solely on financial stability. The furniture flat pack giant IKEA said they've been forced to increase product prices by as much as 10% across all UK stores due to a rise in supply chain costs. Some items have gone up by as much as 50%. A standard chest of drawers, normally costing £99, has increased to £150. IKEA confirmed the increase in a tweet after an online customer questioned why prices had not fallen as part of the Boxing Day sales. Now, what surprises do you or did you receive on Christmas Day? Well, tens of thousands of people across the country woke up to a big bounce and booster bonus in their bank balance. That's courtesy of Santander, because the bank mistakenly deposited 130 million quids into 75,000 different accounts. The error happened when payments were deposited twice from thousands of business accounts. Santander said they're now trying to recover the money, but it could be difficult with some deposits made to accounts at rival banks. December, though, hasn't necessarily been the best of December for all of us, because forecasters say it is likely to be one of the dullest months with less than 27 hours of sunshine. The Met Office says that the figures rank December 38% lower than the national average for this time of the year. The dullest December, though, that was back in 1956, with just 19.5 hours of sunshine. Well, lots of you have been getting in touch with me in the last couple of minutes about some of the stories we've been covering here on GB News. David Stamps in Birmingham says that the Nightingale hubs, these ones, of course, been set up again, dealing with hospital admission surges. This is simply because many hospital wards have been converted into offices. It's the usual flu and respiratory hospital admissions we see every year in winter, nothing to do with Omicron. I think the science might disagree with you on that, David. Maureen says it surely doesn't take rocket science to know it's necessary to forward plan to ensure an adequate stock of lateral flow tests are available at times during the pandemic. And John Crotwell says, I would like to know who is making money selling these tests to the NHS. As always, get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.uk. OK, that is it from me for this evening, and indeed for this year. I'll be back, though, on Monday at 3 p.m. with the briefing as usual. Nana is coming up at 9 o'clock with her programme. Don't miss that. But coming up next, it's Colin Brazier looking back in an exciting year in the space race. Before all that, let's get the weather. It's looking pretty warm for the new year. See you in 2022.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Exceptionally mild as we approach 2022 for New Year's Eve. Most of the rain will wane, it will fade, but it is going to be a windy one. Now, all courtesy of an area of low pressure, which is still with us.